Ahoy, hola. Welcome to Just Checking, the podcast about identity, belonging, inclusion, and culture. As we have seen in the previous episodes, some people express their thoughts and souls through business, others through work or creative processes of the sort. Today, we're going to honor one, the people who express through sound, in this case, through the field of art of music. We have with us Markéta Irglová. Thanks very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Let's go through the beginning of things, and I'm going to try to make this narrative in a chronological manner, jumping to present and past at the same time. What does belonging mean to you nowadays after your journey as an artist and as a woman?
Belonging still means everything to me somehow since I was a child. It's subconsciously, I think it's a feeling that I'm always longing for, this feeling of belonging, of connection. And I mean, you have it when you're a child, you so strongly belong in your family, you belong in the place where you were born, and yet there's this longing, at least for me, in my case, I don't know if everybody has it, but I always had this longing for something. I didn't know what that was. And I think I spent my teenage years looking for that, to be honest. And there were times I thought it was a physical place. There was the time I thought it was a person, the one great love. At times I thought it was God, and I was like intensely looking, reading a lot of books, searching. And sometimes the feeling of belonging deepened, sometimes it went away, sometimes I wondered if I ever find it. It's been a kind of a running theme in my life, and it still means every bit as much as it ever did to me now.
You gave us a very transparent and powerful answer because you mentioned very different concepts: God, home, love, a place. I think many of us can connect with that uncertainty at some point. Coming back to that, let us go back to the very beginning. Is there any sound that you remember as a child? What was the first melodic impression that you got from the world that still remains in your soul?
I think it must have been my mother saying my name, and my father, just this feeling of my name being said in this warm way, tone, like from somebody that loves you, more than life. I think that's, when I think back, that would be the one I remember, a human voice spoken with love.
Let's go back also to your city. You are Moravian, from what I understand.
Yes.
For the audience, because part of the audience is global. We have people from Mexico, Peru, England, even from Iceland. We have
Okay.
some viewers. But for the ones who perhaps haven't had the privilege to know you, how did it feel home? Remember opening your eyes in the morning of a weekend with your parents, your father being a journalist, well, glad that I met, pursuing music with you. How did it feel? How was home back then? How was that smell and sound and feeling overall?
I think I would say that I'm pretty perceptive being. Like I kind of tune into sounds, smells, but also a lot of energy, like kind of reading people's moods and kind of the overall sort of feeling, dynamics in any environment. It's like the first thing you do, or the first thing I do when I enter a space, I kind of do a quick reading of it, it's just how do I feel there? Why do I feel off here, or why do I feel good here, and things like that. So I think family, I was told that I was born on a full moon, and I always thought that meant that family is like a big thing for me, and it is. And so I think when I was little, I really felt, I'm safe, like the world felt like a safe place to me, because I had my mom. I was first born, so it was her and me for the first 2 years. My dad was actually at the army service when I was born for the first couple of years, so it was me and her, against the world kind of thing. I had that feeling when I was little. I mean, when I was little, like when I was a baby, I think I'm trying to go back just to sort of on an emotional level of what I felt like. And I think that's what I find there when I sort of retrace the steps all the way back to the beginning. But I also felt like there was a little bit of loneliness from her side, maybe like that she was young when she had me, 22, I think she was. And she was living with her mom and dad while my father was at the army service. And I think she must have been lonely. And because like you have your baby that you love more than anything else in the world, I know this now. But it's a baby, like you don't get to talk to it. There's like you're giving it everything, but and you're everything that it has, that it wants, that it needs. But there's a kind of loneliness where you feel a little isolated from the rest of the world. You feel isolated from yourself because you don't know what's happening. You're not the person you were before you had the baby. You're just not, and you have yet to get to know the person you're becoming. Everything changes, and it's like nobody gets the memo. It's a funny feeling, and somehow I feel like things repeat, like in generations. So, funnily enough, when I was pregnant, I think I was experiencing a lot of the things that she was, because I was in Iceland, kind of removed from my family, the world I knew. My husband was busy on a project, and so I spent a lot of time alone, and just kind of feeling alone, and so I think it has somehow helped me connect all these things, but all the way back to my childhood. But it wasn't. I just kind of. When I say that she was, I just kind of feel it like a kind of. I know how much I was her whole world, when I was born, and I felt that. I think definitely on a deep sort of instinctual level. You must probably as a being.
As a young woman, at what point music became that power in you? In which moment it was, I'm no longer practicing. This is somewhere where I can convey on my soul.
I don't think there was a really clear line, because music has always had this kind of flow in my life. Like no decisions were ever taken, on my part anyway, of just like, okay, this is where my path is going. But music was always flowing through. Like I was singing since I was tiny. I always loved singing. I had a pretty funny voice when I was little. Like it was kind of raspy, but I kept singing these like children's tunes, and I when I was 4, I saw the musical Jesus Christ Superstar on TV during Easter, and I learned all the songs in English just phonetically, even though I didn't speak the language. So I kind of just, it was like a natural thing, a natural a way of expressing yourself that I enjoyed a lot. And then my parents thought it would be good to get me to play piano, because that was my mom's dream actually since she was little, but she never got to do that.
Great topic too. Though we
Yeah.
can talk about how we project our parents' dreams,
Yeah.
but that's another topic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I was like, yeah, great. That sounds good.
Yes.
I'll do that. And really loved playing the piano. And then my dad really wanted me to play guitar, because he was like, when you're at a fire, campfire, you can't take the piano with you, so do that.
With Petrof.
Yeah. Yeah, I had Petrof piano when I was little. And then when I was 13, I met I actually kept meeting musicians throughout, like even from like the ages of 6 to say 13, because my parents would always go to this festival in our town, and sometimes musicians would come to our house and just kind of hang out. They were very sort of enjoying hosting parties or inviting people for drink, food, anything. So I would kind of be in contact with people from all over, and then eventually when I was 13, I met Glenn, my friend Glenn, and all his friends from Ireland, and that started like a whole path in music for me. But I never actually went like, oh, this is what I want to do. It was never a dream of mine, and I went with it because it seemed like it was something that was just happening, yeah.
It was your thing.
Yeah.
Period.
But I always thought I would go back to whatever the.
What I see is that background of your family embracing naturally others. That's why you're here.
Yeah.
Because you tend to always give to your place and to your people. right?
True,
So
yes.
you're natural on that. It's not like a privilege thing. It is, if I connect, let's do it. Right?
Exactly, yes, yes,
We
absolutely.
want to have that.
Oh.
That your parents raised you in that way. And I feel also in that way. My dad is a doctor,
Okay.
but also is in music. He had his own band and everything, and he reached high back in Mexico. And I can connect with a lot of things you say on the naturality of true artists, right? And that bohemian soul, which is not Moravian, but again, connects with that history of Czechia. I see that the mom theme is very important and present. Is that still today a theme of reference for your art?
Motherhood?
Motherhood.
Yes, yes, it is. But I think a lot because love is a big theme, you know, for me. And motherhood definitely opened a new door to love for me. Like it's a different kind of love. It's very, very deep. You know, it made me understand my mother a lot better in certain ways. And I just think when I experience that unconditional love from a mother to your child, it makes me feel like anything is possible. You know, that when if your heart has the capacity to hold something like that, I think there lies the true beauty of humankind, you know, our capacity to love, to give, to put others above our own needs, you know, to kind of the whole idea of being able to sacrifice yourself for something greater. I think it all comes back to that, you know.
To sacrifice for something greater. Let's keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's something and it's a message that I pursue with this podcast. Let's talk about positive thinking, growth mindset, being kind. That's something that the world needs. And that's one of my motivations to do this and have these talks with people who can empower my voice, as you were saying, right? All kindness. Let's move to the time in which you were an artist and you are still creating your music, and suddenly the world started noticing. Suddenly big things were happening to you in the USA. Some awards came and some transforming experiences. How your soul felt in that moment when you started, I'm getting this public eye that I didn't have perhaps in the past. How was your soul processing the admiration from the public eye?
I think I always felt like if the attention was on me, it was kind of misdirected because it should be on the music, you know, it should be on the art or on whatever because I always felt like people aren't drawn to me, you know, they're drawn to this energy between me and Glenn because it was strong. It was very strong. I felt it, you know, I think he felt it, and I think anybody who kind of was connected to us at the time felt it. And I've often thought about what that was, you know, that energy, where did it come from? Like, but from the beginning, I thought this is nothing to do with me, you know. I felt like maybe because I wasn't established as a musician or anything, I was just a high school student, you know. I always thought like I didn't really understand why he picked me to you know, write and sing songs with him. I wasn't aware of any like special talent that I had or what I was really bringing to the table, and so I was very quick to kind of go like, you know, if like when somebody's looking at you, like, you know, what are they looking at, kind of thing, you know. And I just assumed that how I translated to me, it was just like, okay, there's something like, I love this music. Clearly people love it too, and it should be about the music, you know. But of course there is a tendency to make it about the people, and for the people then to get a big ego, you know, and that's where the magic gets lost. And so I've been thankful in my life that there was never any misconception or misunderstanding on that subject on my part, you know, that I always knew that this is not me. And I'm just like a channel, or I'm something that I'm the ground on which this has gotten to flower, you know. But I never wanted to make it about myself, and a lot of the time I found the attention uncomfortable, you know. There was a kind of a pressure that came with it, and I didn't know if I can actually fulfill people's expectations, because people project on you a lot, and you feel like you're bound to disappoint because unless you try to please everybody by becoming what they want you to be, but everybody wants you to be something else. And so it's impossible to please everybody. So I always just kind of thought, well, I'm just going to be myself, you know, and that has to be enough. And at some point it kind of, maybe it's not enough anymore, and that's the kind of point where you withdraw more. So that was my choice, to kind of just withdraw and collect myself, you know, see how I felt, like what did I want to be, what did I want to do.
So many great elements there, and I love what you said. I'm a channel to project inspiration, and it's my art that wants to should shine. Thank you for mentioning that, and I think it's going to be inspiring to a lot of the audience if we have young artists coming up. My next question is linked to that pressure. Being, let's say, a star or a well-known figure sometimes can bring expansion, because of course fame can impulse that voice and that art in a good way, but sometimes it can feel pressure. Do you remember episodes of both in which you were like, thank you, because this is gonna make my message be clear using the right channel? But sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, it can be tiring, or it could be difficult to deal with so much attention.
Yeah, I feel like the Oscars was the best example of, you know, that kind of attention in the most pure positive way, because I was surprised how I went to the Grammys before the Oscars, and there I didn't feel like that was it didn't feel so well there. And then I expected something similar from the Oscars, but it was so different. The energy was so much higher. Like, people were celebrating each other. Like, what the sense that I got was that this is the biggest party of the year for all these people from Hollywood, you know, involved in film. And every one of them is just as honored to be there as the next, you know, and just to be there in the room is already the biggest honor, and the rest is extra, you know. And for us, it was the same. We were just so excited to be on that stage and play our song that the award itself was besides the point.
Which, an extra gift.
Yeah, it was like that's not going to happen. But being on that stage singing our song, oh my God, you know, yeah. And so when we were there, and it felt like this was a moment, you know, and it felt like, when we were on that stage playing our song, it was like the sun shone on us, you know, and people saw us exactly in the way we wanted to be seen. It just, the song, just the energy of the music there, nothing extra, you know, nothing more needed, necessary. And then when we got the award, it was like receiving this big golden key to open all these doors that were previously shut, you know, and being given the space to say our few words and all of that. It was very gracious to be granted that moment and that opportunity. Then, you know, I arrived home, and it was like tabloids, you know, media, everybody wanting a piece of you, but for all the wrong reasons, you know. And that scared me. I think I did a few interviews, and like, people twisted my words, you know. They had a narrative, they had an agenda. They didn't really try to protect me in any way, you know. There wasn't any there wasn't any pride in what people were doing. It was just like, you know, it was this kind of like trying to rip a piece of the meat from, like, and just kind of, who cares what happens after, like that. I didn't like, you know, it. And I know it's a part of the world, but I have no respect for it whatsoever, and I didn't feel like participating, you know, so I pulled away at that time.
That's very, to me, short term.
Exactly.
People go and they want to hunt on the impulse of the news, right? And the show, it shows short term, it doesn't transcend. Whereas real conversations can be heard 10 years after.
Yeah, exactly.
And you still get something. It was my process. It was about art. It was about music. Let's talk about writing music, particularly in that period. And as we said, belonging changed throughout time and how you felt. Do you start with lyrics? Do you start with the sound? How is the creative process for you? In a high level, of course. We're not going to disclose any secret, but we're going to at least try to understand, from an artist like you, where does it start? Where does it end? Are you fully satisfied with your songs once you finish, when you hear the last version? Do you always have this impulse of, oh, I need to change this chord, I need to change this arrangement? How is it?
I suppose it's maybe a little bit different every time, but at the beginning there's always a seed, you know, and the seed comes. It's an idea. It's something that will grow if you water it, you know. And as you water it and as it grows, you kind of start seeing the shape, and whether it's something that resonates, that holds your excitement to keep working on it. And I feel like the seed itself always comes from either like a different world, another dimension, God, you know, it comes from somewhere else. It comes through, at least that's my process. It doesn't come from me, it comes through. And it comes through a filter of my personality, of my experiences, you know, of my craft, like how much I've kind of worked on myself as a tool. And it's colored by all of that when it starts taking shape, but the inspiration is from somewhere else. And I always try to honor that by kind of trying to listen what it wants to become, you know. And how I know I'm on the right path is when I feel like my heart is opening and there's this kind of like fizzy, exciting feeling of, you know, that will, by the way, go away when the song is finished. You know, that fizziness and stuff will subside, but when it's being born, it is like it's kind of vibration, and you can really, really feel it. And that is, for me, so exciting that, like, I can't go any other path, you know. I wouldn't be able to sit down and think commercially about songs and stuff, because that it wouldn't have that feeling for me. So I literally just follow what the song wants to be without judgment. Actually, I just kind of let it be born, and then I sit down, I listen to it, and I enjoy, because most of the time, if I do a good job, you know, it still holds that same sort of resonance by the time it's taken its shape. And by then I can kind of go like, yes, you know, I think I did a good job, you know. And that feeling is really, really satisfying. And by then I don't feel the need to mess with it anymore. I just kind of feel like, no, this is it. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
It's so interesting. How do you feel when you listen to your first album now?
Well, that's interesting. There's evolution, you know, so there's things where I kind of go like, oh yeah, you know, maybe like, especially the sound wise, I would have made different choices because now I have more experience with studio work, you know. And from a writer perspective, I'm actually happy with the songs. They were kind of reflecting where I was at the time. And you know, sometimes I hear like stuff that I did before and I just want to give myself a hug, because there were times that were difficult, and I tried my best, but it was a struggle, and I didn't know how, you know, how much I was struggling at times, you know. So the older me is sometimes kind of like wishing I could give the younger me a bit of a hug and encouragement or something. But I still stand by what I did on my albums. I think I'm in all of them, like, but also something else, you know. And I'm proud. I'm proud of the work, and it's a nice feeling. Of course, it's not. If I went and re-recorded the songs, they would be different. But I'm glad I got to do that. And you know, every one of those projects, every one of those albums or songs, you know, they're the reason why today I'm able to do what I do today, you know. So.
Correct. And that's over here. In a very respectful manner, I'm gonna mention the name of your album in that period once. For the ones who haven't heard it, it's a very important moment in her career and life, I guess. Another thing that I believe, but it's only my idea, that was important in that era of once, and I said, and I'm gonna say it again, is you saw the world from another angle. You spent some time in the US, the multicultural experience. I'm sure you met some Mexicans, maybe, and some people from all over.
Yeah.
That multiculturalism, which is also relevant to our podcast, is something that we discuss. How multiculturalism has impacted your life, even from once to now. And is that also part of your inspiration, or your experiences in Iceland, in Ireland, you still have the Irish twang.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, French, Ireland.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Well, yeah, it does come out.
So Dublin.
Okay.
Yeah, so we will talk about it another time. It's not about my show now. It's about you. How the multicultural experience has shaped you as a person, as an artist, and has it had an impact in your creative process or songs?
For sure, for sure. I think uh, somehow my general setting all my life has been like more like we're people of the world, you know, we're people of Earth. Like I don't have these like really straight lines with like nationalities and places. Only in the sense of like how I feel like every nationality has an immense kind of treasure, cultural treasure to offer, you know, the other, like to exchange our sort of where our music, our art, our just the language, you know, cuisines, everything. It's so exciting to speak with people from other places and just kind of just feel the richness, you know. And plus, I told you, I watched Jesus Christ Superstar when I was 4, and there is like, you know, guy from Texas playing Jesus,
Yes.
you know, blonde, beautiful, a guy playing Judas, beautiful, you know, like black man. I'm sorry, that's how I but it's always yeah. And Mary Magdalene is from Hawaii, you know. I actually never knew she was from Hawaii. I thought she was somehow like Asians, but it turned out she's from Hawaii, as I learned recently. But anyway, there was like clearly like Jewish people, you know, some of the actors with like big beards and dark curly hair, and that was such a mix, of course, like New York, you know, in that time it was like from people from all over. And I remember like looking at it and going like, there wasn't anything weird about it, even though I wouldn't have seen people looking like that around me, you know. And then hair, the same thing. When I saw hair from Milos Forman, same thing, you know. So I mean, it was normal to me as a kid, even though I grew up in a small town in Czech Republic, you know, in the time that I did, where like you wouldn't come across a person looking that way on the street there, you know.
You were exposed to
Yeah.
concepts that were contemporary back then, such as camp culture, multicultural exposition of art, theater, right?
Yes,
Musical.
exactly. Yeah. And so when I, you know, by the time first Ireland was, I loved Irish people and their art, their culture, their traditions, you know, folklore and all of that, and I found it very attractive. And then America, you know, different again, and but I never really experienced it so much as otherness in some sort of like, for Czech people, you know, maybe it's different now, but back then, like anybody who wasn't Czech was automatically better than us. You know what I mean? I think we projected, yeah, I think we Czechs, yeah, we don't have a lot of national confidence. Like at least we didn't in those times. I think maybe it's different today. I don't know. I don't live here now. So, but I know I did notice about myself that because it was so soon after communism, you know, like I was literally born the year where it was still communist country, 1888, like 89, then it changed, but I was born into a communist country, and my parents definitely like felt like, oh, go abroad, have opportunities we didn't have, you know, like don't stay here, like there's not, you know, it was, so we were kind of made feel like, oh, it's more exciting abroad, people from abroad are more exciting, maybe they have more to offer. So I was always like, wow, that's great, like amazing to be here, like especially places like New York, you know, it's just you can't even take it in, it's so
Also, New
mad.
York back then
Yeah.
was the New York like Berlin has become, or other cities, right? That are cultural hubs.
Exactly. Yeah. It was amazing to experience it.
It's very relevant what you're mentioning, and I think it's linked also to the education your parents gave you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I will never forget this. We will welcome musicians to our home. We'll have drinks and dinner.
Yeah.
That shaped you, I think.
Absolutely.
I think
Absolutely.
you being a kid, having conversations with not only adults, with adult artists.
Yeah.
It's a different take. They see the world in a more emotional, perhaps, or different angle or different lens. And of course, that has to
Yeah.
bounce back at you,
Yeah.
at your soul.
And when I moved to New York, it was at a time when me and Glenn stopped working together, and I really missed, singing with another person, like, 'cause that's kind of like, it's more exciting for me than singing on my own. And I met a girl from Iran who grew up in Minnesota and moved to New York. And I was like, I fell in love with that whole culture, the way of singing, the microtones. And Ida and she also played the DAF. And, she played on my first and second solo records. Like, I loved playing with her and singing with her. And I lived with an Iranian family as well in Brooklyn. And they played so many records, and I realized, I've always had a kind of close connection to like music from Turkey and Iran and all these places, India too. There's something about the singing. I think I remember some past lives, of like, it brings me to another place, the use of voice in that way. So that had a big influence on me, the collaboration with Ida during that time.
In preparation for this interview, because of course it's a big moment for me personally and for the podcast professionally, I was listening to Indian music to get into the trance a little bit and into the purify yourself and make honest questions. So yes, I do agree with you, and thank you for being friendly with foreign cultures, and not only friendly, thank you for acknowledging them, because it is an important message to send in today's world.
Of course, yes.
Let's forget about the name of the country. If we look at the news, the world is going through a turbulent time, and compassion and kindness and stepping onto peace and words of peace is very important. I think.
I agree
So we're
completely.
trying to do that now.
Yeah, I think perhaps I know things look very dark, and they look, like you say, very turbulent, very, I try to, in a way of making myself feel better, I'm trying to imagine that there's everything that's been kind of hidden, in the past few years, like all our kind of, like judgments or kind of prejudices that we've kind of, that have been kind of there, but underneath the surface are maybe just sort of like now everything's being revealed, maybe that's what we're in the middle of, like everything is laid out on the table and we're forced, and we're forced to have a look at ourselves, and review as a humanity, as the world, okay, what is there, because like we need to have a look at that, and there are things that need to change, like yesterday, and like maybe like somebody gave me the analogy once that when you're cleaning a pot, you fill it with water, the water looks sort of relatively clean, and then you start scrubbing the bottom where like the burnt bits are, and the water becomes disgusting and dirty, but you can't clean the pot without that process. So I'm still hoping, and really hoping, because what else is there, to have faith and hope. But I really, really hope that the end result of this whole process will be that we move to a new place as people, that we move past all these like limitations that we kind of, these constructs, that we built, and that we just kind of evolve as humanity beyond conflicts, and hatred and lies and all this greed, this constant greed that like messes everything up, everywhere. So
Amen. And I'm gonna come back to one of your words. The same way you talk about motherhood being a cyclical process of emotions, the world has also that cleansing cyclical process. So let's hope for the better and for the best, right? And that's why we make these efforts with your music, through your art, in this podcast, which I consider being tiny change agent for whoever gets inspired. Let's keep on.
yes.
So let's go to the closing part of this interview by why you moved to, let's not talk names, why you moved so far from your Czech core, why you decided to go to this country, which I love, the greenery, it's like being in the moon and a bit of a playground,
Yeah.
and it's so different yet so beautiful.
Yeah.
Why there? Was that an effort to isolate, to get more inspiration, to get protection after the period of so much attention and so much public eye? What was the trigger in you to make that move? And what have you learned? Not only Icelandic, but what else have you learned in terms of being a channel of art, being there?
Well, I ended up in Iceland not by choice, really. It was, like so many things in my life, it was some sort of destiny or something that waited for me there, and I could actually feel it when I went there in 2010 for a concert with Glenn. That was actually the last concert we ever did as the Swell season, of that kind of world tour. Before we went our separate days, was in Reykjavik, and I came there and I was like, wow, I'm not sure how I feel in this place, It was this kind of like coldness, like I felt like everything was shut, like I couldn't see in, I couldn't get a sense for anything. I couldn't connect with anyone like locally, and like on the streets and stuff. And I was like, wow, this is interesting, but like I still feel that there's something here for me. And I knew that I'd come back at some point and find out what that was. I remember, leaving that place with that in my mind. And then 2 years later, I got 3 signs from different, like, go to Iceland, universe saying go to Iceland. It's like I got a postcard from my like childhood friend from Iceland who's never sent me a postcard in my life. Yeah. A friend, like musician, said like, hey, there's a studio, I was just there, you should go there and record your album. And I was like, okay. And there was like advertisements for Icelander all over the New York subway. Yeah, exactly. I was like, yeah, okay, I get it. I'm going. And when I got there, I got to the studio that my friend was recommending, where I booked the session, and I met Mio, who was running the studio at the time, and who was a house engineer and running the label, and wearing so many hats. And he was the engineer for the recording session of my music. And the two of us really connected, we had this kind of like communication, non-verbal. I could feel that he really understood the music and what I was trying to do, and I loved working with him. And then we fell in love with each other, and I just stayed there, and I stayed there as opposed to him coming back with me, because he had a 6-year-old daughter at the time, and it wasn't possible for him to. It would have been possible, but it wouldn't have been enjoyable for him. Yeah. So I said, I don't care. I'll move here, and I did, and I've been there 14 years now, and I wasn't trying to move away from in the back of my mind I thought like, yeah, I'll probably go back to Czech or even to Ireland, but for some reason I ended up there, and I just went with the flow like I have done my entire life. But Iceland is a complicated relationship I have with the place. It's there's been places in my life where I arrive and I have this kind of like synchronicity, serendipity, things happen, one thing leads to another. You meet this person, they point to that place, you go to that place, that not Iceland for me. Like that's the thing. Yeah, not Iceland, but
Sorry.
what I mean is like what I mean is I've had places like that in my life, like New York was like that for me, even Ireland, Czech is actually like that for me completely. Things flow here for me very, very easily. But Iceland, it kind of, that whole like the shutters are closed. It kind of still remains a little bit, and it's been so long now that I wonder if it's by design. Like, well, this is my general setting too, that I in the end I choose, okay, to have faith. Okay, well, there's a reason it's meant to be this way. I'm supposed to learn something or use it to my advantage. And actually the effect of it is that I am kind of isolated, and maybe the isolation means that I can do what I do without feeling pressured or influenced by any outside thing. So maybe that's the point, that I'm influenced by nature, by the energy in Iceland, which is vast. It creates space in my mind that no other place does. I think that's the magic of that place for me, is that it opens my mind. It creates so much space inside of me that I can hear myself, my heart, my soul, God. I can communicate with something bigger, and it comes through the music. And I don't know if I'd be able to do it in the same way, elsewhere. plus I've, the creation is a big theme for me there. I've given birth to 3 children, it's...
I met 2 of them.
You did?
You remember in the concert?
Ah, yes. No.
Those
You
were
mean the
yours.
Prague? Like a
Yeah,
couple
just
days
2
ago?
days
No,
ago.
they were not my children.
children.
No.
And I was like spending time like to sheep, Malik.
No. You know what? There was
I've been trolled now.
they were very excited, yeah. But no, my children are in Iceland with my husband. Yeah. I tried to get them to come with me, but it's
I actually told Vince, you had an interview with him a few months ago.
yeah.
From Radio Pro.
Okay, yeah.
I also had an interview with him recently on the podcast and everything. And then I said, oh, I haven't met children. I'm sorry.
No, don't worry.
So correction for everybody. I didn't meet anyone from Markéta.
No worries.
Good. So loneliness can be also a trigger of inspiration. So rounding up, how belonging feels now in a place like that. Because this is the topic that you said that you can.
Yeah.
So let's try to round or close it up.
Yeah.
Coming back to the same source at the beginning, belonging, identity. How is it now then?
Well, I feel an immense sense of belonging to my tribe, my husband, my children, they're my core. There's so much, it's complete in itself, we have sometimes it feels like we have our own universe that we exist in, like it's a bubble where we thrive and we have everything we need, and in that bubble the world is a safe place and we have each other, there's so much love and so the belonging is very, very strong there for me,
That's good.
That's good. And the rest, the kind of belonging that I've kind of realized throughout the years what that hole is, inside of me, what that hole has been, what I feel like has been missing. Like I think it's always been, and the thing is, I wouldn't even be able to say it like this a few years back. It's easier now for some reason. I don't know what has shifted, but I can kind of speak about it without worrying about alienating anyone. That now I can say like that search for belonging for me has been search for God. I want. It's so important for me. It's like life and death important for me to feel connected to God, and sometimes I think we feel like, oh, God's not forsaken me, but God's turned his face away from me. When there are times you can't feel.
You start victimizing.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a beautiful child. Why are you giving me that to me?
Exactly. Yeah.
It doesn't work like that.
No, and in the end, you realize you're the one who's turned away.
Yes.
Who's kind of been making more time for other things and kind of, your own sort of like tending to your spirituality and your bond in that way. So I think that's another reason, another thing that Iceland is teaching me to kind of not to kind of strengthen that relationship, and to build more trust. Because for all my life I've believed in God, since I was a kid. Nobody had to teach me. Like there was never any doubt in my mind that God exists. I've had a strong relationship with God, but I still look in the mirror these days, like not the actual mirror, but when I'm kind of self-reflecting, and I go, "Where's your faith, girl?" And it's interesting to know, like, no matter how strong your faith is, it can always be stronger, and that is the core for me. Like,
big round of applause for that. That's the growth mindset, and it's about not letting ourselves down in the process when doubt or when feeling lonely.
Yeah.
Have you been to Mexico?
Well, I would say yes, but I don't feel like I actually experienced Mexico, because I went along with my friends for like a Cancun kind of holiday at a resort. I know, but I was just like, this isn't, like, I'm not experiencing Mexico here. I'm at like a secluded resort with tourists. Right. I would love to. I was just speaking to my cousin, actually. She went to a wedding in Mexico on Días de los Muertos. Yeah?
It's my favorite party.
Yeah, she said it was incredible.
And I think, if I can recommend you, if I'm allowed to, that's a special season. That is unique. And in the South, what we do? I did a program for National Geographic. We dig out our relatives from the graves,
Right.
and we clean the bones.
Oh my God! Like
Yes,
I didn't know.
process. Every region celebrates it differently.
Wow.
So the skull thing you see
Yeah.
is from more the center, but in the south we do other activities that are
Wow.
even more interesting to the eye of a foreigner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, I can send you the pictures of
Yeah,
of
please
the
do.
documentary. I will do, but it's not about me. Sorry. If you were a song, which one would it be to close out this interview?
Whew, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I've never thought about it. Maybe there isn't one, you
All
know?
right. Fair enough. If you were a music instrument, which one would it be? And we have only one question left.
I think it kind of feels somehow close to a harp, even though I don't play the harp. Yeah, I think I would say harp.
And the last question to run out this amazing interview. If you were a sound, which one would it be and why?
Well, sound. I think I would just be like a tone, like the kind of like how I imagine kind of universal. Like at the core, I think we're all different tones of that kind of om sound, that resonate in harmony with each other. So I'm probably like one strand of that kind of the sound of the universe that's both a silence and a sound, if that makes sense.
Markéta Irglová, it's been an honor to have you in Just Checking. And for our audience, let us be grateful for this chance. You open up not only part of your creative process, but your thinking. And we saw a little bit of your soul. This is inspiring. This was a positive, kind, and growing mindset interview. And we're honored again to have you here.
Thank
you so
you.
much. Muchísimas gracias.
Muchísimas gracias.
And we hope to see you soon. Thank you very much, audience of Just Checking. Hasta la vista y nos vemos pronto. Nasledanom. Vidíme se.